So today we're gonna take a look at what I consider to be the #1 killer of high-level effective performance. Now this old dragon's been around since the beginning of time, deadly effective, known by many names, has the ability to change shape and pattern to fit the circumstances. You know him really well, and I know him really well. He goes by many names, but the one that we're going to use today is simply fear. I've been involved in the business world now for well over 43 years. I've led organizations, I've led teams, both in the for-profit and nonprofit sector. And I can tell you that unequivocally, I have seen fear destroy teams, organizations, and individuals. I've seen fear destroy marriages. In our culture today, fear is legion. We have fear of just about everything that you can possibly imagine. We've got fear of being embarrassed. We've got fear of not fitting in. We've got fear of fitting in. We've got fear of standing out. We've got fear of fear, for heaven's sakes. We've got fear of success. I mean, you name it, and we've created a fear for it. So in order to understand something, the first thing that one must do is create the ability to define that thing that they're trying to understand. So the definition for fear that we're going to use this morning is a definition provided to us by Dr. Robert Bell, who has some outstanding and extremely innovative research into the subject of fear. And Dr. Bell uses an acronym for fear, and he calls it false expectations appearing real. And the reason that I like this definition so well is because I think it is spot on. Because like all the dragons in our life, fear is simply an illusion. If you think for a moment about what fear actually does, fear takes us and projects us into a future that has not been created yet, and then has us fail in that future. So, one more time. Fear projects us into a future that has not been created yet, and then has us fail in that future. Now, how logical is that? It's not very logical at all to me. So once we have defined fear, the next thing that we need to do is we need to understand how it's created, where it lives, how it's maintained, and how it's fed. Now, fear is created in the mind. All fear is created in the mind, literally created in the mind. Because when we think fearful thoughts or act in fearful behaviors, we actually create neurological pathways in our brain. The second thing that we do is we maintain that fear by poor self-dialogue and poor behavior choices. And we feed that fear subconsciously by going out and finding facts and events and information that support the illusion that we hold to be real. But remember, it's only an illusion. But we will validate it to the point that we own it. Sometimes to the point that it is extremely difficult for us to be separated from our fear. Now, there are those among us who would have us believe that fear is based upon determinism. And they generally hit in two areas with that. And they'll say genetic determinism or environmental determinism. On the one hand, it means that our genes made us do it, and on the other hand, it means that our upbringing made us do it. Unfortunately, scientific research and evidence does not support either one of those conclusions. Now, there is validity in saying that we have a predisposition genetically towards something. Actually, the term is genetic expression. I may be genetically predisposed to alcohol, but it is my thoughts and my behaviors that will actually unlock the DNA to create that reality in my life. I may have grown up in a home that was non-rewarding, non-supportive, gave me no confidence in myself. But I'm not controlled by that environment. And the reason that I'm not is because with all things in life, there's a stimulus and then there is a response. But in the middle of that is what I call the sweet spot, and what that is choice. The ability to make a choice. So where does this fear live? How is it created in my life, and how do I deal with it? As I said, it comes in the mind. It lives in the mind. It's maintained in the mind. It's fed in the mind. What all of that constitutes is it constitutes what we call a background of obviousness, or an acronym is called the BOO. Now your BOO is simply the paradigms with which you use to be able to view the events and situations and people in your lives. In every situation that you come to, you are going to bring your BOO to that decision-making process, and it's going to greatly influence that process. Now your BOO can be either accurate or it can be inaccurate. If you think for a moment that up to 98% of all of our decision-making is driven not by our conscious mind, but by our subconscious mind, then it stands to reason that it would be a healthy choice to take the time to evaluate our BOO. Unfortunately, in our culture, self-examination, a deep dive into who you are as a person and your authenticity as a person, as a leader, is seldom done. I don't think that in my time in business, I don't believe that I have met a highly effective, highly performing person or team that is not cognizant of this BOO and pays very close attention to it when it comes to making decisions. You know, if you think about it, it's interesting. In America today, we graduate 60,000 MBAs a year in America. Now we graduate 60,000 MBAs from the finest business schools in the world. So I would submit to you today that we don't have business problems. What we have are implementation problems that are rooted in faulty BOOs. Think about that for a while, and I think that you'll see the validity of it. So based upon what I've just said to you, and I've just explained to you about the BOO, when do you think that your BOO is going to be the most damaging to you? You're right. When the stakes are absolutely the highest and when the pressure is on. Those are the two arenas in which we tenaciously cling to our BOOs, whether that BOO is accurate or not accurate. Now, I've got another question for you. When do you think our BOO gets changed? Our BOO, generally speaking, only gets changed on two occasions. One is a traumatic event in our life, and the second one is old age. The first one is an event that takes place in our life that is so shattering that it shakes us to our core and forces us to examine our paradigms. And the second one is simply that we've lived long enough and we realize that, you know what, we didn't get it right. Now that's really a sad commentary. Fortunately, neither of those two things has to happen in order for you to change your BOO. Based upon skill sets and techniques, one can actually realign and recapture both their genetic and their environmental expressions to reach higher and higher levels of high performance and effectiveness. Those are the skill sets that we're going to dive deeply into in this workshop.